Hello everyone, and welcome to a special 100th episode of the Brickformula Reviews, and today I shall be reviewing LEGO Set 10188, the Death Star. It has 3,803 pieces for ages 14 and up, and it's from the Star Wars series, and this set retails for $399.99. And I would like to give a shout out to Gurus Baja 2000, Death Star Man 1, Ewan Cartwright, LEGO and Star Wars 2002, Black Ops 35147, Brickboy 432, Brickboy 32, Lukta Deuce, Brickboy 82, and Bombasted. They are the subscribers who had requested that I review this set. So everyone, check out their channels. And moving forward, here in the front, we can see that there's a lot going on the Death Star. And plus, all along on the edge here, we can see just how awesome this set is. On the side here, we have the minifigures, and I'll talk about that later on. And here on the back, we can see the other side of the Death Star. And you see a lot of more detailed shots as to what you can do here, and it looks like a lot of fun. So let's go and check it out. To get started, I'll start with the minifigures, and here they are. And we have a lot to go through. There's about 24 minifigures all together, plus a Dianaga. So I'll try to go through this as fast as possible because there is a lot to cover. So here we go. Ooh. Whoa, well that wasn't very smart. Okay, so first up are the Emperor's Royal Guards, and here they are. They look pretty cool. And they're pretty much faceless. And here are the details there on the front. There's nothing on the back. And they're armed with these spears. I'm sorry, they're called Force Pikes. Which is a little strange. I mean, these guys are the best of the best. Although, judging by the movies, I think they're the best at standing still. But anyway, I think if the Secret Service were armed with spears, I don't think they would be very effective at guarding the President or any other VIPs. But then again, these guys are in the Death Star. So not like anything's going to happen. Yet. Next up are the Death Star Troopers. And personally, I think they're a lot cooler than the Royal Guards because not only are they trained for combat, but they're also trained to operate a lot of the primary functions on the Death Star, such as the super laser. And here's a close look at their details. There's nothing on the back. And for the record, they have the same minifigure head as the Rebel Trooper in the Tantive 4 set. Next, we get a pair of Stormtroopers. And considering that this is the Death Star set, I was kind of expecting more. But anyway, here's a closer look. Here are their details. And there's the back. And they are faceless. And if you do want more Stormtroopers, the good news is that we do get an extra Han and Luke in a Stormtrooper uniform. And they come with a helmet. So this way it actually looks like you have 4 Stormtroopers altogether. But then again, I heard the ladies say that Han looks pretty good in uniform. And here's a comparison of the two. They got the same face. And there are the details, front and back. And I guess I can't say the same for Luke because even Leia said he looks short. Which I'm really glad that he didn't take any offense to that. And here's a closer look. He looks really innocent in this version. And there we go. Speaking of Princess Leia, here she is. All around. If you take a look at Obi-Wan, he's got really big eyes. And that's the expression of an old man who looks like he's about to get owned. Although, if memory serves, I think he closed his eyes right before he let Vader have his way with them. Anyway, there he is. Here's a close look at his face. And there we go. Next is Chewbacca in handcuffs and a pearl silver bowcaster. And that's it. Same old Chewie. And then we have Luke Skywalker as a Jedi Knight. And here he is up close. He's got the robes going on. And here's a comparison to what he was like a little bit younger. Same face, just shorter hair, and he's missing a hand. Next is Emperor Palpatine. And he looks like the type of guy that you do not want to disappoint. I mean, just look at him. It makes you want to tell him to try decaf. And if you do disappoint him, well, you'll be in for the shock of your life, giving a whole new meaning to getting fired. And there's the back, which is pretty blank. And the Vader's not any better. Here's his face. I can totally understand why Luke would be like, no, it can't be true. If this guy was my father, well, I would be in denial too. Anyway, here are his details. And there's the back. The list of Imperial VIPs do not get any better, because next is Grand Moff Tarkin. And if you smell a foul stench, it was this guy. And who could blame him? He's an old guy, and as you get older, you have less control over nature, basically. And there's his face. Not much to him. And now on to the droids. I'll start by introducing R2-Q5, because this guy used to be exclusive to this set, but he's now available in the 2011 Star Wars Advent Calendar, which is a much cheaper alternative if you want to purchase him. And that is if you don't want to buy him individually on Bricklink too. Anyway, here's a quick comparison to R2-D2, and as you can see, the design is pretty much the same, just different colors. There's the top, and here's what it looks like all around. Next we have C-3PO and a black protocol droid, and they're basically a mirror image of each other. Same thing with the back. And the thing about this black protocol droid is that I don't remember seeing a black 3PO anywhere in the Death Star. I'm guessing this is supposed to be the RA-7 protocol droid, even though the molding for the head and torso should have been a little bit different. Although I could be wrong. And now to finish off the droids, we have a mouse droid, which you can totally build on your own just by looking at it. We have an assassin droid, which does not come with a weapon, so he's not going to be killing anybody anytime soon. And finally, we have the interrogation droid, which is armed with a screwdriver for your poking pleasure. And before I move on to the Death Star, I'll show you guys the maintenance cart that you get to build, which is pretty simple, and it can open up. And inside it looks like we have a blaster and a dial for who knows what. And finally we have the Dianaga, which is a pretty interesting design. I just don't really like the way the neck looks, and this is coming from a guy whose mind is usually in the gutter. It just looks a little strange. But here's what it looks like all around. And that reminds me, the other day I placed this on my wife's pillow, and she woke up screaming. I placed it like that, and it kind of looks like a bug. Got a pretty good laugh out of it, so if you guys want to try that, feel free. Of course, they might end up smashing it like my wife did, but that's okay, it's made of Lego bricks, just put it back together. Alright everybody, here it is, the Death Star. And let me start by saying that out of all the Lego sets I've ever built, I had the most fun building this one. Definitely a lot of fun to put together, and I think a set of this size was meant to be shared, and I'll tell you right now, it's a lot more fun if you don't share it. Anyway, before I go in depth into each room, I figured I'll show you guys a full 360 view of the Death Star. And here we go. And right there you see is the detention block. On this side we have the Emperor's throne room, and down here is the chasm where Luke swings with Leia in episode 4. And over there we have the hangar bay with the TIE Advanced. And I figured I'll start with the top and work my way down. Speaking of which, if you're wondering how I'm turning this thing, it's because I built my own custom turntable. So from here on down is pretty much my own custom work. And in case you're wondering what's at the bottom of the Death Star, here's what it looks like. It's just a dozen slide shoes that holds this thing up together. And you might have noticed that as I'm turning this thing, you'll notice that this thing kind of tilts a little. And that's because this half of the Death Star is actually heavier than the other side, because there's more bricks on this side. And as long as you're playing with this on a flat surface, you really don't have to worry about anything else. Anyway, without any further delays, I'll start at the top. Here we are at the top of the Death Star, and I'll start by taking a look at the conference room first. And as you can see, we have 7 seats all together, and considering that most of the rooms here are scenes from the Star Wars movies, they should have added Admiral Motti here, and you might remember him as the guy that Vader was strangling, where he was saying, "I find your lack of faith disturbing." Well, I find your lack of minifigures disturbing, because without him, there doesn't seem to be much playabilities with this room, especially since none of them seem to be in a talkative mood. Anyway, the conference table can be lifted off, and it will reveal a little compartment where you can just store perhaps Vader's lightsaber, and you can just put that right back. It doesn't really attach to it, it kind of just sits there. So if in the unlikely event you throw a tantrum and you roll the Death Star like a bowling ball, that'll be the first thing that falls out. Anyway, on to the next room. Well, it's not really a room, because you usually find the turbo lasers on the exterior of the Death Star. But anyway, the coolest feature here is that there's a lever that you can push left and right, and it'll move the turbo lasers for you together, which is really cool. I really love that feature. And in addition to that, you can turn this knob up and down, and it will raise and lower the turbo lasers for you too. And you can do the same over here, although I will admit that it is a little bit awkward because this one sometimes blocks the way. But if you want, you can just go outside of the instruction book and put the knob on the other side. You don't have to follow the instruction book exactly. It just makes it more convenient if you want to do it that way. And the strangest part about this room is that if you look behind that turbo laser, there's a hole in the wall. And when I first saw that, I was thinking, that can't be the exhaust port, because the exhaust port is actually on the surface of the Death Star. It wasn't a hole in the wall. But if you feel like shooting proton torpedoes through there, please feel free. For the next room, we have the droid maintenance facility, and as you can see, I have the particle droid up here getting some maintenance done. And in this room, we have this knob that can control the elevator, or for those of you who are fans, it's the turbo lift. And you just turn the knob to lower it and turn it the other way to bring it back up. Now, the good thing about this is that this was built in such a way that it is strong enough for you to place a minifigure on there, so when you're pushing it down, the elevator doesn't go down with it. The only bad news is that if you push too hard, the elevator falls apart. So in the end, I kind of stay away from that because it is a pain to fix that, because in the end you'll just have to take this part off, and then there's a bracket here, and you just take that up, and that's how you fix up the elevator in case you break it. But it's a real pain, and if you're really gentle, you can probably play with it, but for the most part, I just leave it alone. Anyway, down here we have a tool rack, and over here we have 2 extra Stormtrooper helmets. Well, these are not really extra. These are the ones that were made for Han and Luke in the Stormtrooper outfits. So if you have the helmets up here, that means they don't have the helmets with them. And over here it looks like a little bathtub for the droids, where they can thank the maker. And with that hole there, you'll notice that I put a mouse droid by it, and it looks like it fits through there, so I'm guessing that's what it was for. And over on this side we have a little desk where you can probably take a closer look at fixing individual arms and legs for the droids. And that seems to be it. And up here you can open this part up, and there's a knob, and that will help you control the claw in the hangar bay below. And that's how that works. Next, we have the room that's adjacent to the droid's maintenance facility, is the room that I like to call the Death Star's home theater, where Princess Leia got front row seats to watch the destruction of Alderaan. And since that was pretty tragic for her, we can always change the channel by pulling this out. And here's a closer look at the Alderaan sticker. And there's the other side, we have the moon base of Yavin 4, and you can slide that in there if you like. And if you have trouble putting it in there, you can always bring down the TV a little bit. This way you have extra space to slide that back in. And there we go. The channel got changed. And it's in widescreen format too. And right behind her, we have these booths. And this one can swivel a full 360 degrees. We got a sticker right here. And this booth can swivel as well, but not so much, because that's the one that controls the Death Star super laser. And it can move by that much. And this Darkstone Gray knob can also be turned to lower the Death Star super laser, like that. And it can drop all the way down to the ground on the floor below, and you can always bring it back up. And that's how that works. And now that I've covered that, it's time to move down to the floor below to see the actual super laser in action. I think the most fascinating thing about the super laser is the way it is put together. And let me show you guys why. Let me just take that off. And as you can see, it's hooked up by a Technic piece. And what is so cool about this is that this whole circular section is held together by 2 dishes, one on the outside and one on the inside. It's not actually hooked up by any studs or anything like that. And I think that's just a really cool design. See, we'll take that off. And there we go, we're left with a donut. And for those of you who own the Ultimate Collector's Edition of the Death Star 2, you'll see that the super laser on that one is also designed in a very similar fashion to this one. So now with the super laser out of the way, we can get a better view of the inside. And over on this side is where 3PO and R2-D2 spend most of their time in the Death Star. And over here we have a knob that you can turn, and that will open up the blast door to the hangar bay, and you can turn it the other way to close it. And it's kind of funny that the way this thing is shaped, it reminds me of the outlet that R2-D2 sticks his thing into, for lack of a better word. Anyway, And then over here is the super laser itself. This blue peg down here is what prevents this from turning too much. And then if you look over here, we have the control panel for the super laser. When I first saw this, I thought this would be a really cool occupation. But then I thought about it and I realized, I think working here too long might cause infertility problems. Who knows? Anyway, on to the next room. And now we're in Detention Block AA-23. This is where Han and Luke try to rescue Princess Leia. And before they do that, they pretty much shoot up the whole place. They shot down this holocam, which you can see right here, and you can turn it this way and that. They even shot this thing out. And this is where all the stormtroopers come through. And this is where Han has his little boring conversation. And for those of you who are curious, here's what the control panel looks like, because you can't really see it from this angle. You basically have two of those, and you have two of these, which is a sticker, and that's how they're all located over there. And here's a closer look at the sticker piece. And there it is. The sticker's kind of coming off, which is the reason why I don't really do stickers. Plus for the fact that I like to reuse the parts for my own creations. But on the flip side, if you see me review a Lego set with the stickers on there, then you can expect a pretty positive review, because I plan to keep this set intact and I don't plan to take it apart or anything like that. But anyway, over on this side we have a panel that can come off, and that's where you can play with the area inside the cell where Vader is interrogating Leia with the interrogation droid. And then they change the scene, so there's really not much going on in there. But for those of you who are sadistic, you can have fun with that. And then at the same time we have this knob here, and you can turn that to open the door to the cell. And on the other side we have another knob that you can turn downward, and that will remove the panel so that you can slide down to the trash compactor room. You can't really blow it up, so I guess this is a pretty good alternative. And there's actually a hole there too that will lead to the trash compactor room too. We'll just take Luke and we'll throw him down there head first, and there he is, he's down there. Pretty neat, right? And finally, what's really cool about the detention block is the way they designed it. You can't really see from here, so that's why I got my Darth Vader flashlight. And as you can see, there's a sticker down there, and because of the way they designed it, it actually looks kind of like a 3D effect over here. And it gives the impression that this tunnel is kind of endless. It's a pretty cool design. The only drawback to the way they designed this is that this whole section right here is actually just empty space, and you can't really play with it. So I think it wasn't a really wise use of space, because I do find the cell to be pretty small. If they had just made it just a little bit wider, it might have been a little bit better. But it's okay. It's still a pretty neat play area. And on to the next room. Next, we have a scene from episode 6 at the Battle of Endor. This is where Luke and Darth Vader have their epic battle. And they did a really good job with this room. It's really detailed and everything. We have the Emperor's throne, and right behind him is a window where you're supposed to see the Battle of Endor, where the ships are getting blown up and everything. I really love these pods next to it. These are really cool. I don't know what they're called exactly, but it's a really nice detailed look and everything. And we have an elevator back there with a lot of stickers here. And over here we have a platform that can come down. If you remember, Luke kind of just jumps up here and says he won't fight, and Darth Vader will throw his lightsaber over here, and this thing will come down. And then eventually there's some more talking, and then they'll end up over here by the railing, and this is where Luke chops off Vader's right hand. And then eventually he'll say, "Oh, you're wrong, Emperor," and blah blah blah, and then he comes down and gives him a shock. And then eventually Vader's gonna take the Emperor and throw him down one of these holes over here. And this happens to be the bigger hole than the other side. That one's like 3x4, this one's 4x4. And that's it, Emperor, down he goes. And he goes right through the chasm, and he lands right on top of the elevator. How did that happen? Anyway, let's bring our eyes back up here. And that's it. Otherwise, this room is really cool. And then eventually you'll have to drag Vader's body all the way to the hangar bay. And somewhere along the way, they'll take off the helmet and have a little heart-to-heart. And we'll end up over here. For the most part, I think you'll find the hangar bay to be quite a bit of fun. And you'll probably end up having a love and hate relationship with it too. And I say you'll love it because this is, after all, the Death Star. And it wouldn't be complete without a hangar bay. But you'll probably hate it because it is kind of small when you compare it to other ships that you could get. And none of it is really to scale either. When you look at the TIE Advanced, granted it's a really cool design, but it's not in scale with all the other TIE fighters and Imperial starships. And speaking of which, here's what it looks like all around. Okay, there's the front, there's the top. It's actually a very cute design. There's the side, and there's the bottom. And since Vader is the only qualified minifigure to fly this thing, he's a little preoccupied back there, so we'll just stick in a Death Star Trooper just so you can see how cozy it is inside. And there's very little space in there. And since it was kind of designed for Darth Vader, you'll have to take his cape off just so that he fits in there. And there we go, he just made it. Pretty neat, right? With that aside, you can remake a scene from episode 6 where Luke is dragging Vader's body onto the shuttle and escaping from here. Or you can go back to episode 4. This is where the Falcon was parked, and obviously you can't really have it here. But if you remember, this is where they're trying to board the Falcon, and as they're leaving they remember seeing Vader and Obi-Wan dueling back there, and then after Obi bites the dust, we shoot off some stormtroopers, we blast that to close the blast door, this way Vader doesn't get through. And even before that, we have a little hole here, and down here we have a knob that you can turn, and it'll bring some more stormtroopers upward. This way they can scout out the Falcon and see if there's anything on there. And since that elevator leads downward, I guess we'll just check out that room next. And here we go. So, the thing about this room is that I don't recall seeing this in any of the movies. So I'm kind of guessing that this is like a storage room. And the reason why I say that is because we have a crane here. It doesn't swivel or anything, it just goes up and down. And we have a claw up here. And right there we have a seat with a joystick. This way you can operate this thing. I'll just put a stormtrooper there, just for the fun of it. And if you notice, we have 2 barrels here, and I'm thinking that this crane is supposed to lift those barrels and load it onto the cart. And then after that you can just load it onto the elevator and go up. And if you look above in the hangar bay, we do have 3 crates over there. So I'm guessing this is supposed to be some kind of like a exchange. Otherwise, there's really not much else to this room. On the side here we have 2 portals that lead to the Chasm. And back there leads to a laser cannon. Now granted, the playing area for the laser cannon is kind of small, but there is quite a bit of stuff that you can do here. Now the cannon can swivel left and right just like that, and it can move up and down. And if you notice, by the way it's designed, it swivels from this pot up here, it doesn't swivel from the ground. So I'm also led to believe that you can just pull this up, because it's only attached by those 4 studs over there, and you can use this as a standalone. Or you can even attach it to your own creation. How cool is that? And over here we have 2 seats, so this way we can man the cannon. The only bad thing is that this part right here sometimes goes loose, but for the most part I think it's okay. And plus, by taking this out, it gives you an easier access to the weapon rack in the back there. And now we can move on to the trash compactor room. Now the hole to drop down here is actually located right here. It's quite a ways in. Now the weird thing is that the minifigures can only fall down here as long as the trash compactor is open. If you have this in the closed position, the bracket will actually block the opening, so nothing's going to really happen. To give you a better idea, if you look at the instruction book, there's the bracket that I was talking about, and when you push this, this will kind of swing over this way, and that's how it's blocked. Anyway, if we go back to the bottom here, we have the Dianaga that was there doing his thing, and here's Luke coming out of the water. And to get an idea what kind of garbage we have in there is really just a bunch of tubes, and to be exact we have 2 long ones, we have 2 short ones, and some minor pipes over here. And there we go. And the way this thing works is that we have this pin up here, and you just push that inward, and that'll close the trash compactor all the way to about that much. And that's the fastest way you can make a Chewie, Han, Luke, and Leia sandwich. Actually sounds kind of bad. But anyway, if you notice on the sides here we have some really small wall elements, and that's what prevents the garbage from falling out. And if you look in the back there, we have a door, and if we turn this way, you'll see this red part over here. You can just pull that, and that's how you can open the door. And this is how you can get the elevator access to get out of there. And you just push that back to close it up. Next to the trash compactor room are the tractor beam controls. And I guess to maximize the fun out of this little spot over here, I guess you should have the controls facing upward, because if you remember in the movie, Obi-Wan had to go all around and push them all downward. And then once you're done with that, you just simply pull this thing out a little bit, and that'll drop this thing right here downwards. This way you can see that the tractor beam loses power. And if you want to bring that back up, you just push this little stick all the way back up, and then just slide that back in, and you're good to go. Not much to it, really. And this now brings us to arguably one of the largest sections of the Death Star, and this is the Chasm where Luke and Leia swing across from here to there. Now, this is a really cool idea. The only weird thing is that once they get to the other side, they end up at the tractor beam controls, which is kind of like a dead end. They can also swing up there to the other portal where the Stormtrooper is, which is more dangerous, but that's also a dead end too because there's really nothing on the other side. In the end, I think they're better off just swinging from this side to there, but whatever you like, you know. But in the end, you can always just drop down to the level below. After all, it looks pretty safe, and there's a railing there too. And that brings us to the last section of the Death Star. Now, down here, there's really not much to do. I think all you can do really is just stand here and observe the breathtaking architecture of the Death Star, and maybe even observe how neatly I lined up all these stickers on the sides there. And since there's really not much down here, I'll just go full 360 view. This side is pretty empty. Over here we have a pair of drums. And then on this side we have a few stacks of cans, and that's it. And we also have an elevator access to go down here. And that concludes the tour of the Death Star. And now on to the recommendations. Overall, this is one of the most impressive sets out there, and I totally recommend getting it, especially if you're a huge Star Wars fan. Because this thing is just awesome in just about every aspect too. Building it is a lot of fun, there's a lot of playabilities here, and not only are you getting a Death Star, but you're also getting pretty much all of the main characters in the Star Wars universe. And the parts are really good too. It almost feels like a creator set if you choose to take this thing apart. And you can build just about anything with the parts that you get from here. And the only drawback to this set is the price. $400 is crazy, and it's really hard to justify, and I don't care how good your kids are. $400 is just a lot to ask for. Now, there are promotions that you can get. I do recommend taking advantage of the Toys R Us buy one get one half off. Just find somebody you know who also wants to get this set, and you guys can just split it, and you both end up paying $300. Now, if you guys want another reason to get this thing, well, this thing came out back in the middle of 2008. And up to now, this set alone has outlived all of the other Star Wars sets. And in just a few more months, this thing's going to be like 4 years old. So don't be surprised if this thing gets discontinued soon and the price jumps up astronomically. Then you're really going to regret not getting this thing. So that's actually a reason to get it really soon too. But in the end, this thing is a lot of fun. If you'll notice, there's actually a minifigure in just about every single room. So all you have to do is put this in the center of a small table, and this can be played from pretty much from all directions. So I think in the end, you'll really like this set and you'll really enjoy it. And that sums up my review. I hope you guys enjoyed the show, and I'll see you guys next time. Thank you for watching.